Good evening, Grammar Gumshoes, and welcome to Hard Boiled English Live on this March 29th, 2024. I'm your humble host and grammar detective, Paul Duke, and I'm thrilled to be with you once again. I'm sorry that I canceled last week's show, but I was feeling a little under the weather. I had a strange cough, and my voice has been changed as a result. If I have to cough this evening, I'll try to switch my microphone off in time so I won't create a sonic explosion. Anyway, we are here together once again, and that's the important thing. On this show, I investigate and hopefully solve your English grammar mysteries. And tonight, we are going to continue with a grammar mystery that we began 2 weeks ago. We're going to be talking about what comes after the verb. As you may know already, because you're learning English, sentence structure is very complex. And it's hard to learn. But I want to urge you guys to remember, the reason it's complex is so that when you understand it, you can express a wide range of ideas. After all, that's what learning a language is for. It's not to pass tests or get a job or even get into university. The purpose of a language is to communicate your ideas, to express your thoughts, your opinions, your visions, right? To talk about the past, to talk about the present, to talk about the future. And in order to do this, in order to reflect the complex reality that human life is, we need a complex language structure. And better or worse, English has one. So I'm sure all of you are familiar with how to make a simple sentence with a subject and a verb, but what comes after the verb is confusing because there are a lot of possibilities. So we're going to look at some of those tonight. Before we do that, however, I'd like to say hello to everyone and see who's joining us here. I believe we have Jonas. Jonas is with us. We have Suwan with us. We have Louise, we have Fatih, we have Tesfalem. Okay, so yeah, we've got people from Pakistan, Malaysia, Indonesia, I think, the UAE. We have people. We have Morocco with us. So please tell me where you're watching from, and your name. And I think I've said this before. We are streaming live to YouTube, of course. We're also streaming live to Facebook, my Facebook group, my Facebook page, my Facebook profile. We're streaming to LinkedIn. We're streaming to a new live platform called LiveSpace. Everything there is live. So you can watch the show on LiveSpace. We're also streaming to Twitter, X. You can watch us there. And I'm trying to increase the different platforms that we stream to. So stay tuned for some developments there. We have Patricia from Brazil. Janina from, I can't remember where Janina's from. Oh, I'm from Brazil. So Janina's from Brazil. Okay, good. The screen's a little bit far away from me, so my old eyes sometimes struggle to see it. It's great to have you all with us, and we'll get started on our English mystery shortly. How are you all doing? How is everyone doing and wherever you are? Hopefully you're enjoying some nice weather. You're spending the weekend with your families. Luis is from Mexico. Great. In Canada, where I am, this weekend is the Easter holiday, so everyone's celebrating in their own way. Some people are religious and they celebrate in church. Other people aren't religious, but they like chocolate, so they're chasing Easter bunny eggs or eating chocolate bunnies. It's a bit strange, but everyone loves chocolate, I think. Well, most people like chocolate. Actually, I don't even know if that's accurate. Many people like chocolate. Put your hand up and tell me if you like chocolate. Do you in the audience like chocolate? Okay, so YS Tan says it's scorching here in Malaysia. Great adjective, scorching. Or in this case, it's a verb. It is scorching here. Great, great verb. We've got quite a number of people with us tonight. That's good. It's always great to have more people watching, which reminds me, guys, wherever you're watching from, if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook or any of the platforms, you should be able to share this. All you have to do is go down below the screen and click share, and share this live stream out into your network. Please do that for me, because this show is best when it reaches a lot of people. Because the goal of this show is ultimately to help people understand grammar better, to help them investigate grammar mysteries. That's what I want to do with this show. And if there are 10 people watching live, that's lovely, but that means 10 people are able to participate. It's better if we can get more people to participate. So please share this live stream right now out into your network. We need to get more people watching. Sharing is caring, they say. In terms of social media, if you want to show that you care about something and you want to support it, you need to share it. Now, if you're feeling generous, you can also support the show by scanning this QR code and making a donation through Patreon, even as little as $1. Because this show does cost money to produce. It costs me a lot of money to produce, and it doesn't make money. So if you want it to continue, and it may not continue, please consider supporting the show. It's very important that you do so, because I can't continue to do this show without help. It costs a lot of money and it doesn't make money. So if you appreciate it, if you care about it, you can share it with your network, and you can also support it financially. Any amount of money helps. So please consider that. And all you have to do is scan the QR code. It takes you right to the Patreon, and you can make a donation there. And the link for that is also below in the description. Is anyone else here who hasn't said hello? We have Ali with us. Hi, Ali. Nice to see you. Who else? Okay, so it's raining where Jonas is. Morocco, I think, right? And you like the weather. Okay, so Jonas, you like the rain? I've never been to Morocco, but I assume that it doesn't rain a lot, right? So when the rain comes, it's probably a nice change. That's good. Okay. Well, if you're joining us a little bit later, please say hello in the comment thread, and I'll say hello on screen. And I think what we'll do is we'll get into our mystery, because we may need the full hour to solve it. So just to recap, we've been talking in the last live stream about what comes after the verb. And today we're going to continue that, and I'll do a quick review of what we discussed before. But that's what I'd like to focus on this evening. And this topic started with Jonas, who's one of our viewers here. Jonas asked me about this question. We have this question, this sentence here. You have to promise not to tell anyone. And Jonas was asking about this question. And specifically, what is this stuff after the verb? Right? We have this verb promise, but then we have all this stuff, not to tell anyone. And he was, thinking about this. What is this? What part of a sentence is this? What kind of grammar is this? And it made me start thinking about this. It made me start thinking about what is all this stuff that comes after the verb? Right? We have a subject, you. We have a clear verb, promise. We have this modal, have to. And it's not necessary. You could say you promise, subject, verb. But this is slightly adjusting the meaning of this verb, promise. You have to promise. But then there's all this other stuff after the verb, several words. And so it got me thinking, you know, it's a really simple question, what comes after the verb? But it actually explodes into a lot of different possibilities. Now, we have explored a few of those, but tonight I want to explore a few more of them. Okay? So let's get into this, and I'll introduce this segment as I get my rain jacket off. And we'll call this segment... Oops. Sorry guys, wrong video. Well, something funny happened with that video there, but you get the idea. Tonight we're going to talk about verb complements. This idea of what comes after the verb, it's an important question. And it's a complex question, so please bear with me. We're going to take a look at several of the things that can come after a verb. Before we get to that, I want to quickly say hello to a couple people that have just joined us. Yoshishige Sakuma from Japan, welcome back. Haven't seen you in a long time. Welcome, welcome. And also we have Tuti Anayani from Indonesia. Anna from Indonesia. Great to have you with us. Thank you. So in a previous episode, last 2 weeks ago, we talked about the simplest basic structure of a sentence, right? We talked about a subject. Every sentence needs a subject in English. Without a subject, you don't have a sentence. You have something else. And we need a verb, right? Subject, verb. And we said that some sentences can be very simple. They can simply be 2 words. I jog, right? I jog. It's my hobby. It's my routine. Every day I jog. All you need is a subject and a verb, and that is a complete idea. And then we said also, sometimes a sentence has an object. In a case like, I play soccer. Right? I play soccer. Or he kicked the ball. Right? We have a subject, a verb, and an object. And that's a complete idea. And those are kind of the basic sentences everyone learns when they're a beginner, right? I'm sure you've experienced this. That's a basic sentence. But we've also seen that as you develop your skills, there isn't always an object after the verb. Sometimes there's this other stuff after the verb. And we explored some of those possibilities. And I said 2 weeks ago that those possibilities depend on the type of verb, right? You may recall that I introduced something called a copular verb. And copular verbs are what we call linking verbs. And you're familiar with one of them. The most common copula is be verb. And so you can make a sentence like this. I am. Subject, verb, and it's a copular verb. But it's not a complete idea until we add something over here, right? So we said we could add a noun. We could say, I am a teacher. That's an object, and it's a noun. We can say that. We can also say, I am happy. Well, happy is not a noun. Happy is an adjective. So after a be verb, we can put an adjective. But after an action verb, that's not possible. We can't say, he kicked happy. Doesn't work. We cannot put an adjective after an action verb. We can put an adjective after a be verb. We can say, I am happy, I am nice, I am angry, I am crazy, I am weird. Right? You can put adjectives after a be verb because they describe the subject. With a verb like this does not describe the verb, right? So we can't put an adjective here because we have this action. We can put an adverb here. We could say, he kicked quickly, or I play diligently, right? You can put an adverb here to describe the verb. And those would not be objects. Objects are nouns. So an adverb in this position isn't an object. What is it? And that leads us to today's topic. Now, we said also last week that there were two types of verbs. Transitive verbs, and I said transitive verbs must have an object. Okay? This is not a transitive verb, jog. This is an intransitive verb. And intransitive verbs do not need an object to complete the idea. We can simply say, I jog. It's my hobby. I can say, I run. I cook. That's my hobby. I cook. Cook what? You can say you can have an object, but you don't need one to complete the idea. Right? That's an intransitive verb. But a transitive verb requires an object. For example, I like. I like. Like. Like is transitive. You have to like something. You can't just say, I like. I like. I walk around liking. Can't do that. You have to like something. That's a transitive verb. So you can see we have 1, 2, 3 types of verbs. And the type of verb determines what can come next. Okay, what can come after it. That's a big deal. That's a very big deal. Okay, so let's just organize this a little bit. And we'll clear the board. And we'll introduce something today that comes after the verb that will give us some new ideas, that will allow us to express some new meanings that we haven't talked about yet. Now, I want you to remember this intransitive verb, I jog. If we use an intransitive verb, with a subject, I jog, we need nothing after it. We don't need an object. We don't need an adverb. We could have an adverb. We could say, I jog quickly. I jog every day. That's an adverb. Every day, 2 words. That's an adverb telling us when we jog. We could have that. It's possible, but we don't need it. That is a complete idea. It's small, doesn't tell us much, but it tells us something completely. It's a complete idea. So it's an independent clause. It's a complete idea, and it has a subject and a verb. So, if we don't need an object after it, but we can have other stuff after it, which is proven by the verb or the adverb quickly. You can put I jog quickly. So that's evidence that we can put stuff after it. What can we put after it? Okay, let me repeat that. It's an intransitive verb, so we do not need a noun object. But we can put other stuff like an adverb. I jog quickly. That makes sense, right? I jog quickly, or I jog every day. That's perfectly clear. I jog quickly. I jog every day. These are adverbs. And that works. Well, if that works, that's clear evidence that it is possible to put some words or phrases after an intransitive verb. Okay. So that raises the next question. The next question is, can we only put adverbs, or can we put other stuff? The answer is, you can put other stuff. Okay, what? I'm going to show you several possibilities of what can come after a verb, an intransitive verb. And a transitive verb is simple because a transitive verb must have an object. No choice. You must have an object. Okay? So that sentence structure is kind of a dead end, right? If you have a transitive verb like enjoy or like, it has to be followed with an object. You have to like something. You have to enjoy something. Doesn't make sense without it. Okay, but let's focus for now on intransitive verbs. And we'll see transitive verbs too. So what can we put after the verb? Let's go through the possibilities. The first possibility is something we call a predicate adjective. We've seen this already. Okay? This can come after a copula, right? A linking verb. An adjective that follows the linking verb, and it describes the subject of the sentence. So look at these examples. Paul is happy. What is the adjective happy describing? It's describing the subject. So the meaning is kind of pointing backwards. The dog is cute. The adjective cute points back to the subject. Students are tired. The adjective tired points back to the subject. So this is called a predicate adjective. It's like the adjective is part of the verb predicate. The predicate means the verb package. It's better than saying just the verb because sometimes the verb is one verb, right? Like is. But sometimes the verb is made of two parts, like is standing. Or in present perfect, have been waiting. 3 verbs together in a verb package. So this word predicate kind of covers that possibility, right? It's a verb or 2 or 3 verbs, all of which creates the verb package or the verb team. That's the predicate. So these are called predicate adjectives. We've seen them already, right? It's very common. After a be verb, you can put the adjective. You don't have to. It's a possibility. It's an option. What you cannot do is say, Paul happy. You can't have subject adjective. In English, every sentence needs a subject and a verb, right? You got to have a verb. Otherwise, it's not a sentence. Paul happy, she happy, that's not English. The dog cute, not English. Students tired, not English. You have to have that linking verb to the adjective, okay? So that's predicate adjectives. That can come after the verb, right? The adjective can come after a be verb or a copula. Where's my copula? That's another possibility. We can have adjectives, okay, after a copula. Now there are other copulates like seems, looks, feels, but the most common one that you really should master is the be verb, okay? Let's look at another thing that can come after the verb. And by the way, look closely at this word here, adjective. Adjective is what we call a part of speech. Adjective, adverb, noun, verb. These are the word categories, vocabulary categories. What part of the speech are they? What are they doing? What's their function, right? An adjective describes nouns. Remember that, okay? We're going to come back to that. So the next thing, and again, this is coming after a copula. The next thing that can come after the verb, copula verb, is a noun. So these are called predicate nominatives. Fancy word, nominative just means nominative just means noun. That's it. So this is predicate noun. So this is a noun that comes after a copula. So we can put a noun here, right? Paul is, we said Paul is happy. Here we're saying Paul is a teacher. Teacher is a noun. Noun is a part of speech. Rover is a dog. Rover is a dog. Dog is a noun. That's the part of speech. Student, the student, became president. President is a noun. That's the predicate nominative. So nouns can come after copulas, which I think we know. We've talked about this before. What else can come after the noun? Object complements, okay? So these are nouns or adjectives, or nouns and adjectives that can follow the direct object and describe the direct object. Now we're talking about something a little different. Look closely at this. And this is for transitive verbs and objects, right? So here we have an example. She named. And named is a transitive verb. We can't just walk around and say, she named. We can say, I jog, period. That's a complete idea. I jog. I cook. I run. I exercise. Nothing has to come after those verbs. But this is transitive and it needs something. You have to name something. Okay? So she named her dog. She named her dog. So she did the action and the action affected her dog. This is transitivity. But look closely at this example. She named her dog Rover. Rover comes after the object. And Rover is a noun. And Rover is telling us information about the dog. Right? She named her dog Rover. We elected Paul president. We elected Paul president. President is a noun. So this is a noun giving information about another noun, an object. And the final example here is the news made them angry. In that case, the news is the subject, made is the verb, the transitive verb, right? And you can see that it's transitive because you can't just walk around saying the news made. The news made, that's not a complete idea like I jog or I exercise. If you say that to someone, they're going to immediately say the news made what? This is not a complete idea because it's a transitive verb and a transitive verb needs an object in both grammar and meaning. Without an object, this makes no sense. It has no meaning. The news made what? The news made them. Them is a noun, so them is your direct object. The news made them. And then after this we have an angry, which is an adjective. And the adjective is describing that object. So these are called object complements. Let me just clear this. And this idea of complement is really important. It just means that this is a piece of speech, a word or two or three, that finishes the meaning of this object. Complement just means finish the meaning. Without it, it doesn't make sense. Let's look. Let me cover it. She named her dog. Okay, good. Named her dog what? Rover. The news made them. Okay, the news made them. Made them what? Made them angry. So we kind of need these words to finish this idea, right? This is not a grammar function. This is a function of meaning, and grammar and meaning work together, right? We need these words to finish the meaning of the idea, okay? I'm not saying that we need these words grammatically, right? You don't need them grammatically. You need them according to the meaning to finish the idea, okay? So this is where grammar and meaning are interacting. Let's look at another example. So these are now verb complements. This is a different kind of thing that can come after the verb. Let me just clear the board again, and we'll talk about this. Okay. What is a verb complement? This is also something that comes after the verb. Okay, these are verb forms. And by forms, I mean there's different ways to express a verb. Verb forms that follow the main verb and complete its meaning. So this again is the idea of a complement. A complement finishes or completes the meaning. And look at the three forms we have possible: infinitives, gerunds or nouns, or noun clauses. This is interesting. So these can come after the verb. Look at the examples here. Paul wanted. Well, what did Paul want? Can I just say, Paul wanted? Hey, you know what? Paul wanted. Paul wanted what? We need information after that, verb. Why? Maybe it's transitive. Paul wanted to fly. He wanted to do that action. Okay? Now, he hasn't done that action, right? That's why it's an infinitive verb. An infinitive verb has no tense. It's sort of a future possibility. He wanted to fly. This sentence doesn't tell us that he did fly. It tells us that he wanted that action. Probably didn't do it. So here we have the pattern of subject, verb, infinitive verb. Okay? Then we have this pattern. She discussed moving. Now, discussed is a transitive verb. It needs an object. You can't say, she discussed. I discussed. You discussed what? You have to discuss something. The same way you have to enjoy something. Okay, discussed is transitive. It must be followed by a direct object. And the direct object can be made of a noun, like she discussed English, or a gerund noun. She discussed moving. Okay, moving is a gerund. It's no longer a verb. It's a noun. She discussed moving. Moving is the name of the activity. Okay? We can't just say she discussed. It's a transitive verb. And because it's transitive and it requires a direct object after it, it also means you cannot have a preposition after it because you have to have a direct object right beside it. She discussed something. Okay? That means you cannot have a preposition. You cannot say she discussed about moving, or she discussed with moving, or she discussed for moving. You can't have a preposition after the verb discussed. You must have an object right after it, immediately after it. That's the rule of transitivity. Okay? Because you have to discuss something. The last example says, the teacher asked why I didn't study. And if we look closely at that one, the teacher asked why I didn't study. I'm just going to clear this. In this sentence, we have our subject, teacher, we have our verb, asked, and then we have this whole new clause. And it's a clause because it has its own subject and its own verb. It has an auxiliary and it has the negative not, but the main thing is it's got a subject and a verb. I didn't study. That's a complete idea. It's got a subject and a verb. That's a clause. But it's connected here and it comes after the verb. So this is what we call a verb complement. It's a whole clause, but it's complementing the verb. And if you're not sure if it's a complement or not, try to say the sentence without it. The teacher asked. The teacher asked what? Well, the teacher asked this whole thing. This becomes the object or the complement. It completes the idea of the verb. It tells us the full idea of the verb. The teacher asked why I didn't study. Okay? So that's our other possibility. That's a verb complement. Now you're probably starting to say to yourself, well, all this stuff that comes after the verb, sometimes it's called a complement. Sometimes it's called an object. Sometimes it's an infinitive. Sometimes it's a gerund. Sometimes it's a noun. Sometimes it's a clause. But isn't it all the same thing? Well, the answer is kind of yes. What we're talking about here are complements. And I'll get back to this in a moment. But there are two other categories we need to look at. Infinitive complements. Complements are things that tell us information about something else, right? An infinitive complement is an infinitive verb that follow the main finite verbs. Finite just means tense, right? It's the main verb that can be past tense, future, present, whatever. It's the verb that changes and expresses tense. So these are infinitives that follow the main verb and complete their meaning. And we've already seen some of these, right? Paul told us what? To study. Rover tried. Tried what? To eat the pizza. Okay? The students wanted. Wanted what? To pass the test. Right? We need these phrases to complete the verb's idea. If we just say, Paul told, or even Paul told us what? To study, to do that action. Rover tried. Rover tried what? Rover tried to eat the pizza. Right? We need to eat the pizza to complete this idea of tried. The students wanted. That's not complete. Wanted what? Wanted to pass the test. And these infinitive verbs express an unfinished or future possible action. These actions haven't happened yet, right? Paul told us to study. This sentence doesn't tell us that you did study. Maybe you didn't. Rover tried to eat the pizza. Tried, but did Rover succeed? We don't know. The students wanted to pass the test. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they didn't pass, but they wanted to. Okay? So these infinitive verbs aren't actions that necessarily happened. They're possible actions. That's why they're infinitive. Infinitive verbs haven't happened. They're just actions in theory. Excuse me 1 second, guys. Got to get some water. This is our last category of complement. Gerund complements. And gerunds are the ing form of a verb, but they take on the feeling and the meaning of a noun. They're used as nouns. Okay? They follow the main verb and complete their meaning, but they express noun or object characteristics. So in the example here, Paul liked what? Studying, right? Liked is a transitive verb. You have to like something. You can like nouns, like Paul liked pens. You can like people. Paul liked the Gumshoes. But you can also like the names of activities. Paul liked studying. That's an activity. Okay? Here we have Rover began. Began what? Began is a transitive verb. It needs an object. Began eating the pizza. He began doing that activity. Here we have the students prefer taking tests. They prefer that. Prefer is the verb, right? You cannot just say the students prefer. Prefer what? To complete that idea, we need a gerund form, a noun form. The reason we need this is back to the original idea, because the verb is transitive. Transitive verbs need to be followed with an object, and the object must be a noun or a gerund or a noun clause. So we've seen 6 different groups of things that can come after the verb. And ultimately what we're talking about here are complements. Right? Can you see that? And this is where it gets confusing for people because we have all these fancy words for things. Complements, objects, adjectives, nouns, gerunds, infinitives, nominatives. All these fancy words. But they're all talking about one thing. When we talk about complements, we're talking about everything that comes after the verb. We talk about verb complements or complements. We're talking about all the stuff that can come after a verb. Right? Subject, transitive verb, intransitive verb, or copula, 3 categories of verb. And then we have all this different stuff that can come after the verb. Objects, adjectives, clauses. But they're all complements. So complement isn't a part of speech like noun, adjective, or verb. Complement is not really even a grammatical thing. It's a category of meaning. Right? All the things we looked at express different meanings. They finish the meaning of the verb. Right? So this is where it gets confusing with English because we talk about things like parts of speech, nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, prepositions, articles. Those are parts of speech. They're categories of vocabulary. Okay? You look up in the dictionary, you look a word up in the dictionary, it tells you the part of speech right away. Noun, verb, adjective, adverb, preposition. Tells you what part of speech. But once we start making sentences, we have to talk about things differently. The parts of a sentence are subjects, verb, complements. Right? This is sentence structure we're talking about, not category of vocabulary. Right? Complements, we've already seen. Complements can be nouns. They can be adjectives. They can be infinitive verbs. They can be, what else did we see? We saw clauses, gerunds. They're all complements if they're doing the job of completing the meaning of the verb. Okay? That's it. That's it. That's a verb complement. Object complements we saw, right? We said something like the students elected Paul president, and president was an object complement. Finished the meaning of the object. All of this stuff is post-verb, stuff that comes after the verb. But so sometimes when you're learning this stuff, you hear the word complement, but then you see infinitive verb, and you know what that looks like, and you know what a gerund looks like, and you say, well, is it a gerund or is it a complement? Well, it's both. Right? Complement is the category of meaning. Right? It's the job it's doing in the sentence structure. It's complementing the verb. Right? Or even complementing the subject if it's a copular verb, right? Paul is happy. So that's complementing the subject. But it's telling us what it's doing in terms of meaning. Okay? All of these are parts of speech. Vocabulary categories. All of that can be very confusing, right? And learning a language shouldn't be, the goal isn't to be confused. So when students and learners ask me, what is a complement? What is this? What is that? I want to be careful because learning what something is called may not help you use the language. Now, if you're trying to be a teacher and you want to understand how all this grammar stuff works so that you can analyze your students' work, your students' speech and writing, okay, maybe it's useful. These terms are also there so we can talk about the grammar. I can say, hey, this sentence doesn't have a subject, and you know what subject means, so you know what the sentence is missing. So this is what we might call meta language. It gives us words to talk about the language that we're using. But what's our goal? Isn't our goal really just to use the language to express our ideas? I think it is. For you guys, it should be. So I don't think you should worry too much about what a compliment is, what it's not. Is this part of the speech a compliment, or is it just a verb? Or make sure your sentence has a subject, make sure it has a verb, and learn the different possibilities of what can come after the verb, and practice it. The other thing if you're learning sentences, learning how to make sentences, this is, again, and I repeat this every week, I think, it's so important to read in English, right? It's incredibly important to read English when you're learning it. And when you do that, you can see the possibilities. And you can see how a sentence is made. You can see what the subjects are. You can see what the verbs are. And then you can see what comes after the verb, right? You can see the different possibilities that are allowed, so to speak, to come after the verb. The different types of complementation that come after a verb, right? I just want to say quickly hello to Jack. Hi, Jack. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I think Anna Maria just joined, yes. We have Shanu with us. Great. Thanks for joining, everyone. We also have, maybe I'm not pronouncing this correctly, but Mohit. Hopefully I'm saying your name close. We have Facebook user with us telling us Nepal is small but beautiful. That's good to know. Thank you. Anna from Indonesia. Yes, great. So just to summarize this, guys, I don't think you should worry about what is a compliment, what isn't. That doesn't really help you, right? Compliment is just a way of looking at all the material that comes after the verb, right? What's possible to come after the verb. That's useful because sometimes when you're making a sentence, sometimes when you're making a sentence, you're not sure what you should put after the verb. One of the things that we've learned here, and I say this all the time, is the importance of knowing if the verb is transitive or intransitive. For me, that is so much more important than if something's a compliment or not, or what kind of compliment it is. This is actually very important. And knowing if the verb is a copular verb, be, is, are, seems, looks, feels, those are copular linking verbs. This is the heart of a sentence, the verb. And there are basically 3 categories of verbs. I think that is far more important to know than anything that comes after it. And the reason is simple. This determines what comes after it. We've seen that in the last 2 episodes, this episode and the previous one. All of the decisions about what can come after it start here. If it's a copula, like be verb, what can come after it? Nouns and adjectives, right? Nouns and adjectives. Paul is a teacher, noun. Paul is happy, a noun. An adjective. Paul is happy, an adjective. Right? After a copula, we can put a noun or an adjective. Paul seems like a teacher. Paul seems happy. Nouns or adjectives. If the verb is transitive, we have one choice. Objects. We have to be, a transitive verb must be followed immediately by a direct object. Right? For example, enjoy. You have to enjoy something. You have to discuss something. You can't discuss about, you can't discuss with, you can't discuss for. You need to discuss something. Right? You need to discuss a topic. You need to discuss business. You need to discuss English. You need to discuss grammar. Okay? The transitive verbs must be followed by an object. You have no choice. Now the object can be 3 forms. It can be a simple noun. Paul enjoys pens. Right? Paul likes bunnies, right? Paul enjoys rabbits. Paul enjoys pizza. Not enjoys for pizza, enjoys pizza. Because you must have an object after a transitive verb, you cannot have anything else. There are no choices. So transitive verbs are kind of simple, what can come after it, right? Intransitive verbs open up more possibilities because intransitive verbs do not need a direct object after them. For example, I jog. You don't need anything after it. Now you could put stuff after it, like I jog in the park. Prepositional phrase. I jog quickly. Adverb. I jog every day. Adverb of time. I jog because I want to be healthy. That's an adverbial clause. So intransitive verbs open up lots of possibilities, right? And we've seen those. For example, I jog. Why? To stay healthy. That's an infinitive complement. I jog to stay healthy. These elements are the most important things to learn for sentence structure, in my opinion. What comes after it, you can't even decide that until you understand what type of verb you're looking at. And there are 3 categories of verbs. So guys, to summarize that, because I believe this is the most important thing to know in sentence structure, what kind of verb it is, and it's important because it determines everything that comes after it. How do you know? How do you learn what kind of verb it is? You can use the dictionary. The dictionary will tell you right after it what kind of verb it is. I'll give you an example here. So this is the verb enjoy, right? And you can see the dictionary, it says enjoy, verb, so that's the part of speech. And what do you see right after the word verb? You see parenthesis and the letter T. That T means this verb is transitive. So that's one way to learn if a verb is transitive or intransitive. And by the way, some verbs can be both. We can call those swinger verbs. They can be transitive or intransitive, right? So, and you can see the example there. I really enjoyed that movie. That movie is your direct object. So the dictionary is one way to determine what kind of verb it is. Another way, and probably the most natural way, is just pay attention. Read. Pay attention to what comes after the verb. Whatever comes after the verb will tell you what kind of verb it is. Right? If you see a noun right after the verb is transitive. I think this is, and again, this is why what I wanted to say earlier, this is why I believe reading is so important in English. Maybe other languages can be learned with speech. English can really only be learned to a higher level if you read. Because when we speak, the interaction with our speaking partner is too fast. We cannot pay attention to the structure of the sentence. When you read, you can take your time to notice the parts. You can see how the subject and the verb work together. And then you can see what comes after the verb. And that'll tell you if the verb is transitive or intransitive. And you can remember that structure. And then in the future, when you use that verb, you can make a choice about what comes after it. Read. It's the superpower of learning English. Some young people tell me, I don't like reading, teacher. In my opinion, that's a problem. Because I don't think you can ever learn English to a really high level without reading. I've never seen someone who's really good with English who doesn't read. Okay? And the reason is simple. English is highly irregular. It's a very weird language. It doesn't follow rules strictly like some languages do. In order to learn all those different patterns and complex grammar, you have to see it. Just like you have to see the weird spelling of English, right? You can take 2 words like wait and wait. Same sound, and if you're learning English only by speaking, you don't know which word you're talking about. But if you look at it in writing, you can see the verb wait, and you can see the noun wait, and you can see the spelling is different. Got to read in English. I'm just going to go through some of the questions here. So a complement can be a verb, yes. We've seen some examples of that, right? Where are we here? Luis, let me just find it. The infinitive complement is a verb. Infinitives are verbs. So Paul told us to study. So we have two verbs here. We have told, followed by to study. Then we have Rover, tried. Tried is the main verb, past tense. Tried what? Tried to eat. So you have two verbs beside each other. Tried to eat. Now in English, you can't really have two verbs in base form like Rover tried eat. That doesn't work. Tried to eat. Okay? So your main verb followed by the infinitive verb. That's a verb complement. Or the students wanted. Wanted what? Wanted to pass. That's two verbs. The first verb is our finite verb or our main verb. It tells us the tense. And then the infinitive comes after it. So yes, Luis, that's a verb complement. Definitely. Definitely possible. Just going to go through here and see if I missed saying hello to anyone. Well, thank you, Jonas. Hopefully we've cleared up a lot of what you and I were talking about earlier, the mysteries that we've noticed. Yes, Jack, absolutely. I think this is the kind of hidden secret to learning English. I really do. I've honestly never met someone, native speaker or learner, who was really good at English that didn't read. It just doesn't happen, right? Every language is a bit different, but if you think about the history of English, there's so much literature and written word through history of English. And I think there's a relationship there. I think there's a connection. And as I said, if you really want to learn how to use the English, to see the different types of verbs and what can come after it, you've got to see it. You've got to take the time to look at the sentence and notice what comes after it. And by the way, and maybe Jack can testify to this, when we learn English as children, we have to read a lot. I've worked with some students from different countries who told me in elementary school, in middle school, and high school, they never read novels. They sometimes read paragraphs. By the time I finished high school, I probably read, 50 novels. A lot of them were homework. So our teachers forced us to read an awful lot of English. Novels, essays, articles, stories, just constantly reading. Starting when we were in kindergarten, in grade 1, grade 2, learning to read. Reading's an incredibly important part of learning English. So you gotta read, guys. Fatih is asking about subjunctive. I don't have time today to discuss it, but Fatih, I know you're in the WhatsApp group, so I will give you a connection to a video from a previous episode where we talked about subjunctive, because this did come up recently. We have with us also Zara from Pakistan. Welcome. We have Facebook user. Her name is Melissa. Her name is Melissa? Yeah, great. Facebook user, what's your name? When you watch our show inside a Facebook group, we don't see your name. We only see Facebook user. So what I recommend is subscribe to the YouTube channel. Scan the QR code or go to YouTube and look for the Grammar Detective. Because the YouTube channel is really the best place to watch this show. Best picture quality, most people put their comments there, and you can see the recordings of past shows, and most importantly, I can see your name in the chat thread. Yeah, so here is a good example, Jonas. Seems belongs to the category of copula, right? You can say Paul seems to be happy. You can also just say Paul seems happy. Like we said with copula verbs, they can be followed by a noun or an adjective, right? Paul is a teacher. Paul is happy. Seems, and you'll notice that copula verbs are often sensations, feelings, senses. Seems, feels, looks, appears to be, things like that. So you can say this, but you can also just say Paul seems happy, right? He make it look better. Well, the make is your main verb, right? Make is your finite verb. That's the verb that needs to be tensed and conjugated. That's the important thing. He makes, this should be makes it look better. So this becomes base form, right? Because it's not your finite verb. It doesn't have to conjugate with the subject. This is a verb complement, right? So here's an interesting question. How to use the word so to avoid repetition in advanced sentence structure. One thing I would suggest to you, and we will talk about this soon in my writing workshop video. You're often taught to avoid repetition in advanced sentence structure. Of course, we want to avoid repetition so that when we use it, it has power, right? We can use repetition for emphasis. If you're asking me when to use so to avoid repetition, what word is this replacing? What are you thinking about using so to replace? Because as a conjunction, so connects cause and effect. For example, it's raining today, comma, so I brought my umbrella. Because it's raining, I brought my umbrella. So cause and result, cause and effect. That's the conjunction so. So can also be used as an adjective, right? A comparative, things like that. I don't have any time left in the show to really go through that, but I do have other videos. So if you are you a member of our WhatsApp group? Because I can connect that link. Yeah, absolutely, Jack, right? Tolstoy is very advanced reading, and oftentimes high school students don't understand the novel, right? Don't understand the story of what's happening in old Russia, but that's not the point. We read Tolstoy for the language, for the words, for the ideas, for the sentence structures. Shakespeare as well. We read Shakespeare in high school. Why? Shakespeare was never meant to be read. Shakespeare was meant to be performed. However, Shakespeare also innovated the English language a lot. He created a lot of new language that we still use. So Shakespeare is very important to study so you can see where English comes from. But you know, these are examples of how much we have to read as native speakers when we're learning our own English. Not every country's language works like that. Some countries' languages are taught through speech, not through reading and writing. But English, we really need to read it. Guys, I think I better close up shop because my voice is starting to fade out. My recent coughing illness has really weakened my voice, and I can feel it. It's going to collapse on me, and I'm probably going to start into a coughing fit in a minute. So I'm going to wrap up the show. But I'd like to say thank you. Guys, thank you for joining me today. Thanks for participating. Let me just clear this off. Hopefully we can understand a little bit better what complements are, what parts of speech are, what is possible to come after the verb, right? We've been looking at this idea of, you know, what comes after the verb. And there are a lot of possibilities. And I think in conclusion, we've discovered that what's really important to know is what type of verb it is. Is the verb copular verb, a linking verb? Is it a transitive verb? Is it an intransitive verb? This is far more important to know than if something is a complement or a direct object or an adjective or an infinitive or a gerund, because all of that is determined by this information. So when you're learning new verbs, find out, right? When you're studying vocabulary, whether it's the dictionary or list, find out whether the verb is transitive or intransitive or copula, right? That's important to know. All right. I'm going to say goodnight, guys, before my voice explodes. But I think we can safely say that tonight's English mystery, we can say case closed, because I think we're done talking about complementation. Now there's another topic that's kind of buried in here, and that is, when do we use infinitives as a complement? When do we use gerunds? We'll talk about that more next time, and I've talked about it many times, but the simple answer is, use a gerund when it's a transitive verb, because the transitive verb requires an object, and really, only the gerund can be the object. So guys, thank you very much for joining me tonight. I'll see you next week. And if you haven't joined our WhatsApp group, you can join down below. The link is there. Join the WhatsApp group, participate, talk about your grammar questions, some of which we can discuss here on the next show, okay? Until I see you again, guys, I really want to emphasize that you take care of your health always. Enjoy the weather if it's good weather out there. If it's raining in Morocco, Jonas, enjoy that. Until the next time I see you guys, stay healthy, keep studying English, read, and as always, guys, please stay cool. Watching tonight's show. If you have an English grammar question, an English mystery, contact me on social media and send me a video of you asking the question. I'll investigate it on a future show. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell button to get all the updates about videos and events. If you're feeling generous, you can also donate to the production costs of the show at Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee. Finally, until the next time I see you on Hardboiled English Live, I want you to keep learning English. Stay healthy and stay cool.